Okay, good afternoon, everyone. To briefly introduce myself, I'm Abby Tomlinson, working on the digital side for Fourth Wave Technology, and I'll be hosting the webinar today. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend today's webinar on providing clean indoor air for learning environments, hosted by Fourth Wave Technology. There's definitely been never been a more important time to discuss the importance and benefits of clean indoor air in education. Speaking today, first of all, we have Richard Greenwood, who is the founder of Radicate and the VIRUSKILLER technology. He's going to talk about the science behind VIRUSKILLER, how it filters and decontaminates air in real time, and how this works in schools. Then we're going to be hearing from Nathan Wood, who is Managing Director at Farmwood, Chair of the Better Wellbeing in Buildings Group, as well as the Chair of the GCP Europe Indoor Environmental Air Quality Task Force. And then after Nathan, we'll hear from Magoo Giles, Principal and Founder of Knightbridge School, and Sebastian Hepper, Principal of Eaton Square School. After you've heard what they've got to say, which I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions about, we have 15 minutes for a Q&A session at the end. You can ask questions at any point in the webinar by typing your question into the question box, which I'll be monitoring throughout. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll be going through them and answering as many as we can. Okay, without further ado, I shall pass over to Richard and get the presentation up.
Thank you, Abby. Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Greenwood, founder of Radicate. Radicate is a company that specializes in photocatalytic oxidation, clean air technology, as well as other innovations within the clean air sector. Brief history of myself: I had a consultancy company several years ago. For several reasons, I started looking at clean air technologies. I searched the globe to find companies who were doing it, what I perceived as doing it well. I found and partnered with a company in South Korea called INBR, who are the original founders of the VIRUSKILLER technology, and joined forces with them to lead their innovation and to take the VIRUSKILLER technology around the globe. So really, we started and launched this as Radicate at the end of 2016, early 2017, and we've steadily been taking the Radicate VIRUSKILLER technology around the world. So next slide, Abby, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about indoor air quality in schools, and onto the next slide, what we've done within schools. Before we get onto the history in the UK, it's worth noting that our technology derives from South Korea, originally funded by the South Korean government in response to SARS coronavirus in 2004. We then developed the technology, which initially is a virus killer and actually developed for coronavirus. But we developed it because there's lots of other air pollutants as well to deal with. And over the past few years, in particular in the UK, NO2 and particulate matter have been the culprits there. And we really have honed in on this. Our technology doesn't just try to trap all air pollutants, it actively neutralizes and destroys air pollutants you can't trap. And so we coined something called We Share Clean Air. And in the UK, I'm sure you might have seen this, but we've put this into a few schools in the UK, and we were on Sky News as the first We Share Clean Air that we did in London. I think that was the beginning of last year. Next slide, please, Abby. And again. So, as I said, it's not just all about COVID, this. The research on traffic pollution and schools close to traffic, as you will have heard, all of this research is that we're hindering lung growth. It has lots and lots of effects, including effects on education and all kinds of stuff for children in the learning environment. What I'd like to say here at this moment is that although we are in the throes of COVID, I believe that all clean air technology needs to look a little bit more long term. So we need to try and look past this. We are going to have to live with viruses now. This isn't something that we're going to get past. Viruses are going to be something that you know, we have to deal with and we have to adapt to. But there are lots of other air quality issues, particularly in schools. Formaldehyde is something that is going to come to the forefront and be mentioned a lot more next. Ultrafine particles are something that we should be looking at more, not just particulate matter, and things like NO2 and other VOCs, as well as viruses. So we really need to look at technologies that are doing more than just putting filters in there and trying to trap what they can. It is limited. Next slide, please, Abby. We have done some work with the Mayor of London's office. We were the only technology in 2018 in the Mayor of London's toolkit for dealing with air quality in schools. We have also done some work with the Mayor of London's office in nurseries, and that in particular is looking at nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter. Nitrogen dioxide, a little bit more difficult to deal with VOCs, as well as trying to trap them with activated carbon. Our technology neutralizes toxic air. So without going into COVID, other pollutants that we need to deal with in school, formaldehyde, nitrogen dioxide, ultrafine particulate matter, and then when we jump into ventilation with Nathan shortly, the elephant in the room is always CO2. Next slide, please, Abby. You might have seen Channel 4 Dispatches had a special called Britain's Toxic Air Scandal. They were particularly looking at NO2 within schools. They did a trial in a school, again in London, very high NO2 levels. They used the Radicate technology within the classrooms, and the whole episode from green walls and technology inside classrooms, we managed to reduce exposure of NO2 by 50%. Next slide, please, Abby. And you can hit it again. We have installed into well, if we look at South Korea, where the technology has been live and active for many years, we are probably in 50% of the education sector over there. So hundreds of thousands of installations in South Korea. If you look at South Korea as a country of what they're doing, not just with regards to coronavirus, but with the clean air space, they're years and years advanced, one of the most advanced countries in the world. Last year, there was an initiative by the government where they wanted to deal with lots and lots of pollutants before COVID, including viruses, and they put a tender out there. Companies like LG and Samsung and our Radicate technology submitted for that tender, and we won the tender to go into lots of schools with clean air technology. One of the things we did in that particular instance is the ability to bring in outdoor air to combat CO2 levels as well. But even pre-COVID, because of their experience before with coronavirus in 2004, they have had a very, very good level of cleanliness with regards to pathogens, and really understood the importance of ventilation and clean air technology well before this. So we've got a lot to learn from countries like South Korea here in the UK. Next slide, please, Abby. If we look, just finishing on pre-COVID-19, and we look at things like when children go back to school in September, it's actually a time where the asthma levels are at the highest, and certainly hospital admissions for asthma are at an all-time high in September as well. Part of the reason for this is that we're bringing back into that school environment lots of different bugs, lots of different pathogens. What a lot of people don't understand the relevance with any kind of respiratory condition, especially asthma and viruses. So there are some studies, and some very good studies, one recently done in Canada, showing that over 50% of child hospital asthma admissions, children had a virus of some sort. This is pre-COVID. So viruses certainly have a knock-on effect, especially with conditions like asthma. And it's something that we definitely need to keep in mind, reopening schools and the possibility of not only COVID, but lots of different pathogens that are being reintroduced. Next slide, please, Abby. So we go on to COVID-19. And when this first broke, I was one of the people online that said, I believe that this is airborne. A lot of people were accusing me of a bit of scaremongery because obviously I'm associated with clean air technology. But if you think about the association and what coronavirus and COVID-19 is, it's an airborne virus. So we've gone here from big droplets that landing on surfaces, small droplets that can stay in the air for a period of time, to aerosolized droplets, still droplets, but much smaller. So we know this is an airborne issue. And when we look at disease transmission routes, and we have direct contact, indirect contact, droplet, and airborne, all disease transmission routes are relative to the air. So just recently we conducted a study in Canada where we used our technology to see how much we reduce surface contamination of COVID-19. And the reason we did that is if you stop surface settlement, then surely you can have a big reduction in between cleaning of viruses settling on surfaces. We were surprised to achieve a greater than 99% reduction of surface contamination. So on all 4 disease transmission routes, clean air technology and ventilation is super important. And I'm glad that we're really addressing this now. Next slide, please, Abby. So if we look at air pollution, we've got dirty air, and again, Abby, toxic air. So dirty air, particulates, dust, pollen, dander, very easy to trap with filters. Toxic air, VOCs, gases, smoke, fumes. You can trap some of them with carbon filters, but for us, this is something we neutralize in our technology. And again, please, Abby, sick air, bacteria, viruses, mold, and fungi. A lot of those bacteria, mold, and fungi can be trapped with filters. There is sometimes an issue with trapping them in that bacterial growth. Viruses, you will trap some with a filter, but because it takes such a small virus load to infect somebody, we really need to think about what we're spreading back into the air if any of those viruses are getting through a piece of technology. And again, please, Abby. So bioaerosols released during talking, coughing, sneezing. There's research coming out all the time now. In particular, I saw some research recently about talking and how much of a viral load we'll release. But even you know, we started this thinking about coughing and sneezing. We know eating, so cafeterias, places where we eat and generally talk, are a real danger for cross-contamination. So in all areas where we are quite simply being in indoor environments, there is a higher risk of cross-contamination. We talk to a lot of people about masks, and there seems to be a lack of understanding in the UK. It is growing now, but wearing masks, the best part about that is to stop you potentially infecting other people, because you could be carrying a disease and infecting other people with it. So a single sneeze can release 40,000 pathogenic droplets, but even talking and coughing and laughing and breathing in its own right, you're releasing pathogens if you are infected into the air. Next slide, please, Abby. So we're going to talk about VIRUSKILLER and what we do. The first stage of VIRUSKILLER is purification. So if you look at a standard air purifier, we have a pre-filter, catches larger particles and irritants. Carbon filter neutralizes most gases and VOCs. well, it traps them. Actually, a HEPA filter will trap dust and other particulate matter. When it comes to the virus killer technology, next slide, Abby. The second part to our technology is, for me, the actual technology. HEPA filters were designed in 1940, and I think technology's moved on. So anything that gets past filters, past the purification stage, then comes into our reactor chamber, where VOCs and gases will get neutralized and pathogens will get, well, we say destroyed. So this is the real important part of our chamber, which is the neutralization of VOCs and the destruction of any pathogens. In particular, there we talk about viruses, where we're breaking the RNA of viruses within this chamber. The photocatalytic oxidation process is done by many people around the world, but it's not done correctly by very many people. This is why I fell in love with the IMBR technology in South Korea. So the process does involve, when you're neutralizing gases, for example, you have to have enough of that process going on so you neutralize the gas fully. And when it comes to pathogens, when you're pushing a pathogen past any kind of technology at force, like you are in clean air technology, you need to know that there is enough radiation, say ultraviolet radiation or oxidization from the PCO process within that chamber to fully destroy those pathogens in a single air pass. So this then also shows that if you do this correctly, you're not creating another problem. You are in fact neutralizing all of that problem with regards to gases and destroying all of that problem on a single air pass with regards to viruses, bacteria, mold, fungi. Very important part about this reactor chamber. It's, as you can see on the image there, it's built up of lots of layers of ultraviolet light. We then use reflection and refraction to amplify that radiation. We use multiple, in some of the units, over 100 titanium dioxide filters to create enough oxidization within that chamber. So the full reaction happens within there. We also make sure that throughout stress, we're releasing no nano titanium dioxide particles. So we've done all the tests with our technology to make sure the technology is absolutely safe. So PCO, or photocatalytic technology, when it's done correctly, is a very, very good futuristic technology. And that's why NASA developed it and used it on the International Space Station. So for us, we're very proactive in testing our technology, sharing those test results, showing what test results can achieve. And next slide, please, Amy. When we talk about our chamber, which is the heart of the virus killer, for us, there are two main things that we need to look at with our clean air technology and the points of difference with Radicate and VIRUSKILLER. Those two main things are that if you're giving a destruction rate for viruses, then it has to be on a single air pass. So you need to know what goes into that unit and then what comes out of it. And if you can show that virus loads come in, and we've tested against coronavirus, adenovirus, influenza virus, all the main virus groups, and we have a no detection of viruses at the end of our chamber. So very important, if we're controlling the flow of air and taking that air, say, to the ground and into our units, then we're pushing air back into the breathing zone. We know there's no viruses going back into that air. That's number one important, single air pass test results. And number two is controlling the flow of air. So it's no point having a piece of technology that is just pulling air past the breathing zone of lots of people in a room, because if somebody's infected on that side of the room, you're pulling it past everybody else within that room. So we try and specify our technology accordingly for rooms, for sizes, for people that are in the room, and control the flow of air. Control the flow of air, get it into the unit, and make sure that there is no viruses coming out of that unit. I think that's the only way to show a virus kill rate. With all other pollutants, you can have chamber test results, and everybody does that. But with viruses, very, very important that it's a single air pass kill rate shown. Next slide, please, Amy. This is just showing you, if you hit it again, viruses coming in and coming out of the virus killer technology. There are no viruses left, but viruses going into an air purifier, some of that virus load can and will be released back into the ambient, which then is released back into the breathing zone. So air purifiers really do serve a purpose, very cost effective and good for a lot of indoor air pollutants. But really, you've got to look at what are you trying to solve with a piece of clean air technology, and then how well can that piece of technology solve it? And that's my advice for anybody looking at clean air technology. The second part to this, which Nathan will come on to now, is ventilation. Extremely important. And as Nathan will tell you, it's also important to think about airflow within ventilation as well. Next slide, please, Abby. So we're just talking again about the same thing, multiple air passes against a single air pass. Single air pass will give you real-time protection. Multiple air passes are great for a lot of pollutants, but when we come to viruses, what goes in, you need to ensure what comes out is virus-free. Next slide, please, Abby. And that's it from me. I hope that gives you a clearer understanding of Radicate and the virus killer technology. Happy to answer any questions in the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Richard. Nathan, if you want to go ahead.
Hi there, thank you. So yeah, my name's Nathan Wood and I'm director at Farmwood Mechanical Limited. We're a ventilation company. We specialise in ventilation systems, be that domestic, commercial, industrial. Being in the industry for 18 years has given a wealth of knowledge and fundamental understanding about the importance of ventilation in buildings. In the last 5 years, we started to look a lot closer at indoor air quality, and through our research and works, we've managed through our associations with BESA, which is the Building Engineering Services Association, for myself to be chairman of a wellbeing in buildings group, and also GCP Europe, which is a similar association for indoor environmental quality. So we know our vents. We started to dig heavily into indoor air quality, and through looking at all different types of technologies and systems and solutions, air quality monitors, we've started to really dig deep into the air quality systems. So I know the Radicate products, and I've looked at the competition and the various arrays that are coming forward in recent months in response to the coronavirus. But I think it's important to state that the issues surrounding air quality in schools have been long-standing. They've been documented for a very, very long time, and it's probably the last few years that people like Sadiq Khan and other major cities have been really starting to invest into what technologies and what solutions are out there for schools in particular. So whilst your child is under your care and responsibility at home, you can look after their environment. You know whether or not their environment is stuffy, too hot, too cold. You make sure that you don't smoke in the building, if indeed you do smoke. But then when your child goes to school and you put your child in the hands of the school principals and the staff there, you take on an understanding that the school will have a good duty of care to your children. The school may look nice, it might be well presented, everybody will be very, very delightful and welcoming, but you're not going to know what the air quality is like. And in the new world that we find ourselves in, certainly you're not going to appreciate or see the risk of COVID. With the systems that the government has put forward in place, it's very much, wash your hands, wear a mask, and keep your distance from people. I see the last one more as ventilate your space. So When we look back before COVID, there was lots of research going into air pollution in schools, and there was a fantastic one by the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health. Really, really detailed report. I'll be more than happy to share links with people at the end of this. And it dug deep into the issues surrounding housing for children, as well as the schools that they go to, and the risks associated with growing up and also learning in a polluted zone. So we have control at home. We assume that the schools are taking control of it as well. But more often than not, the environment that your child is exposed to at home can be worse than what is outside in the street on your way to school. So certainly the air quality inside your home may be 5 to 10 times more polluted than the air pollution outside, albeit it will be made up of different pollutants. So people assume that their buildings are their safe havens, and as much as you can keep your home what you consider to be healthy, it's what you can try to do more with the air quality. So ventilation is key. Lots of people have been talking about pollution dilution. Lots of schools have been recommended that they should open their doors and windows. And certainly that will help whilst the weather's nice. We're not worried about heating these buildings, and indeed trying to keep the heating within them. But now the seasons are changing. We're having to keep our doors and windows closed. So that natural ventilation that is coming into the building is going to be cut off. Lots of schools and buildings don't have any mechanical ventilation. So we need to look at sensible energy efficient solutions that can address the key indoor air pollutants, such as that Richard mentioned, particulate matter, VOCs. But in the new world that we find ourselves in, we need to address viruses and airborne pathogens. So by installing the clean air technology within the rooms, you need to have an understanding of the function of that room, the location of the unit, to ensure that you get the perfect airflow. And this is key, to get the air from that room into the device, deal with everything in the device, and then supply clean air out the other side. So you can install this, you can install the systems. We can make sure that the airflow is right. You can stick to the social distancing, washing your hands. And by adapting all of these principles, you're exceeding the duty of care. So you're going beyond guidance. There's lots and lots of new systems, technologies coming through, people talking about UV systems that have been adapted into all types of air purifiers. But I think it's important to understand that this system was directly developed in response to SARS many, many years ago, government support. It's not a new technology. And by researching into the systems, understanding the test data, ensuring that they're installed in the correct places, and also adhering to the other health and safety principles regarding masks and cleaning your hands, it is offering the best duty of care. So we send our children to schools to learn and to develop. And it's well written that children in an education setting with poor air pollution will have reduced cognitive ability. So as much as newer regulations would look towards monitoring CO2 levels, it's far more important that we address all of the key issues, not just CO2. We can address particulate matter, we can address VOCs, and we can address viruses. So the latest guidance, Building Bulletin 101, doesn't include what these systems can do. So you're going beyond compliance. And certainly the shock that COVID has brought to the world and the reaction in my world, in the engineering world, everybody is now looking at going beyond compliance, because compliance only looks at minimum levels, minimum requirements. By putting this in place, we will exceed it. So by looking after the air quality in your schools, you can ensure that your children are not only exposed to the best learning criteria, but they're also breathing the best quality of air, which will no doubt have a better effect on their outcomes. So by improving the quality of the air, you're improving their ability to learn, you're improving their health and well-being, and you're reducing the risk of COVID. It offers that extra peace of mind. And certainly, if unfortunately my school hasn't, but if they were to adopt the technology, you know, it's the peace of mind for myself. And certainly by offering that high level of duty of care beyond compliance, which is what certainly I think everybody should be looking for. I think that covers what I wanted to put forward, and I'll be very happy to cover any questions.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Magoo, if you want to go ahead and sort of introduce Knightbridge School.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Magoo Giles, the principal founder of Knightbridge School, 2006. Yes, interesting to hear what both Richard and Nathan have said, obviously about a higher level of duty of care beyond compliance. I think obviously the first thing to really say is that, you know, we do have our health and safety procedures in the schools to ensure, obviously, that the safety of the air quality is absolutely there. So that's the first thing. Obviously, we have our procedures, and we have more cleaning, and we have plants, and we have air ventilations, and all the things that we've heard about already. But as I think Nathan just pointed out there, this is a great opportunity to enhance those and slightly to go above and beyond, I suppose. Especially as we are beginning to see fluctuations in the weather, and of course moving into the winter months. I mean, it means that, you know, this is an added technology that actually will, you know, it's very exciting that it obviously cleans the air, which is excellent for us because it has an effect on not just the children, but obviously the staff and the absences and various other things that we have to deal with. And I think that's something that's really important for us. And as I said, you know, we're looking at this as something that it is an add-on. And we were very fortunate. Certainly, we came across VIRUSKILLER by virtue of a former parent who introduced us. And as I said, I see this as a great opportunity to add another layer of protection, you know, to both take on the respiratory angles and of course the growing concern that we have through not just staff but parents as well about clean air and the fact that we're in, you know, the center of a big city. I like the idea of the ventilate your space. Knightbridge School is excited to be trialing these products and working alongside Nathan and Richard and of course the VIRUSKILLER teams. Sebastian, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Magoo. I'm Sebastian, Principal Eaton Square School. Some 400 pupils in the prep and getting on for 700, I suppose, with the senior. We, like Magoo, are based in central London, and of course, that throws up various challenges in terms of air quality, no doubt. But I think the exciting part of this is not only what it will do for the children in the schools, but also the wider community, which I'm not sure has been touched on. I mean, we've heard a lot of science from Richard, thank you very much, and Nathan as well. But for me and Magoo, I'm sure it's all about really the more human, I suppose, side of it. That we're doing our very best to look after the pupils we have in our care and the staff, but also the parents and the families that we have connected to the schools, even though at the minute they're not in the schools. If you think about Knightsbridge and you think about Eaton Square, you know, we've got 800, just 1,000 pupils in our two schools every day. And those 1,000 pupils are then dispersing every day to their family homes in and around London. So actually, I think this goes a lot further than just our school settings, because if we can do our very best as we are and go beyond the compliance, as we've heard a couple of times, to ensure that pupils are coming to school and being in spaces and areas which are as safe and as clean as possible, it then clearly follows that when they go home, they're going home in a far better state than they would have been without. And so I think actually, not only are we doing our own children, staff, a great service by having these units in place, we're also helping the community at large. So I think everything has been said, perhaps that could be said, certainly from science's perspective. And Magoo and I think, are looking at this, as I said, very much in human terms as much as anything else. But we're both really excited, I think, that our schools have had the opportunity to get involved with this and be ahead of the game. So I think that's all I would say for now, but very happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, everyone. So we'll move on to the Q&A now. If I just get the holding screen up and ready. Okay, we've got quite a few questions. So I'm a parent and I've been shielding my child. How do I know that my child is safe in all school areas and not just the classroom? So that might be one for Magoo or Sebastian, maybe.
Hi, good question. I think for myself or Magoo to stand up and say, you know, can we categorically say that your child will be 100% safe in terms of absorbing or taking on board a cold, flu, or indeed a virus? It'd be hard to say 100% that's going to be clear. What we're trying to do with this is ensure that as many areas within our schools are as clean and pure and safe as they can be, and we see no better way of doing this than having these units in place. I think the experts in terms of installation are not Magoo nor myself. They are Nathan actually and his team. So he might be better placed to describe how best to effect that in real technical terms. But we are clearly doing our best in every other way to ensure that's the case.
Fantastic, yeah. Thank you. Someone has asked. Sorry. So,
would you like me to carry on, Abby?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, just to carry on from Sebastian there. Having visited the schools myself, both schools, by addressing it in the classrooms, that's where the children are going to be spending the majority of their time. From my understanding, that there's not a lot of movement around in the buildings themselves. The idea is that they stay in their bubble and their health concerns are addressed within the bubble. So certainly if you're addressing the air within the space that they're spending the majority of their time, they will receive more safeguarding in terms of the air within that space. The common corridors, seeing that the windows are mostly going to be shut going forward, the air doesn't just stay in that room. As the doors open and people start to move around, it will start to mix and dilute the air with the air that's been outside in the corridors. Now, the air in the corridor may not be, shouldn't be, and hopefully isn't containing any viruses. However, it's the virus. We've got to remember the virus is carried by us. It's although we talk about it being airborne, when people are talking about introducing systems into HVAC systems like the heat, vent and air conditioning systems and taking the air from outside on a roof level and cleaning it before it comes in, the chances of COVID being in and up in the air up there is very, very limited. So we're actually treating the core through the very people that we want to activate into our building. So the safeguarding is happening inside the building in the very spaces that the children spend the majority of their day.
Fantastic, thank you. Someone has asked, how often do the filters have to be cleaned? Do you have to have a service contract?
So I'll take that one, Abby. So important for any technology that's catching air pollution is you've got to clean the filters, just like you have to clean the filter on your Hoover or your tumble dryer. The first part is you've got a pre-filter which catches all the large particles. That's the only bit that needs cleaning. And it's as easy as wiping it over or hoovering it. It's catching the larger particles. The rest of them, the smaller particles, will go into a HEPA filter or a medium filter. And then anything that gets through those filters goes into the reactor chamber. But yes, very important that the maintenance of the pre-filter is done on a regular basis. We say every 2 weeks. It really depends where the units are positioned. If you put a freestanding unit on a thick carpet, you might need to do that more regularly, because a lot of that dust and larger particles is coming off carpet. In Knightbridge School, it's every 2 weeks, and this can form part of a cleaning routine by the cleaners. Very, very quick to do. It's a 20-second job, but something that we try not to forget, because if that gets blocked up, the units get blocked up. Other than that, within the technology, we use quite thick filters for freestanding units, so they last quite a long time. You've got a good few thousand hours there of runtime before you need to change those filters. The filter change, again, we keep it very simple. You open the filter drawer and change the filters. You can take a contract, a full maintenance contract, but you don't have to. It's very simple to keep these units good yourself. So there are options there. I know there are options with fourth wave for maintenance contracts as well. And we find that a lot of people using the technology do that, because it just makes it very easy. But as long as the pre-filters are cleaned, they're workhorses. You won't really get a problem with the units.
Great, thank you, Richard. Someone has said that they work in the ventilation industry and have contacted their children's school to raise awareness for the IEQ issues and the current pandemic. And the reply was, rest assured, we are following all government guidelines. Well, we all know that's not enough. So what can we do collectively to change this? There might be one for Nathan, maybe.
Yeah, perfect. Totally agree. I'm going to be quite harsh to say that the government guidelines to help schools out has been extremely poor. The local contacts that we have, we've been trying to push their buttons to get a response, and it's been very, very poor in response. So at BISA, we've been putting together part of the Wellbeing in Buildings group, more of a respectful layperson's perspective on what they can do to address air pollution in any building, not just school settings, in any building. They can take it to their offices, they can take it to their gyms, anywhere, and just openly share this fundamental information that us as experts in the industry take on board. And as well as if they're in the ventilation industry, they would be looking to push things as well. The problem is that the government have been so busy trying to sort out all of the other problems with like the furlough scheme and everything else. I think they've taken their eye off the key point, which is ventilation. But only yesterday, new government guidance came out stipulating that ventilation is key and the risk of airborne contamination. So without doubt, if anybody wants to drop me a line, I can put them in contact. And once this guidance is in draft material, I'll be more than happy to take people's opinions on that. Worth noting as well that we're also pushing on lobbying the government with all party parliamentary groups in terms of the environmental bill to get indoor air quality enshrined in the environmental bill as well. So we are all working on it, but we're working, trying to get a common voice, a louder voice as well.
I think if I can just touch on that point as well, going back to part of this within my slides, I mentioned the disease transmission routes. We just have to apply a little bit of common sense to this as well. We can't just rely on guidance, because guidance sometimes can be very broad ranging, and that guidance is based upon what people feel that the mass majority can do. I think if we do apply some common sense to this, we can go a little bit above and beyond. And if we look again at those disease transmission routes, which are direct contact, indirect contact, droplet and airborne, you know, we've been banging the drum pre-COVID within the health space in the UK about the fact that we have to take droplet and airborne disease transmission routes more seriously. Because pre-COVID, there wasn't a hospital really in the UK that was doing anything about those disease transmission routes, apart from filters within their ventilation system. Now, what this is doing, and we have to take the positives out of this, this is forcing us to look more closely, not just in schools, but in healthcare, in elder care. We have this thing where we say the young, the old, and the vulnerable they're the people we most want to get our technology in front of. And the positives to this is we're forced to look at how do we increase infection prevention and control. And now we have to look at droplet and airborne disease transmission routes, but also going above and beyond that. When you look at droplet and airborne disease transmission routes, you're creating real-time protection to reduce the amount of surface contamination and therefore direct contact contamination as well. So looking at the air, where most of that comes from, if you can have something in there that deals with the air and process it and controls the flow of it and kills any pathogens within that, we're greatly going to reduce the strain, not just within this pandemic, but if we then look at healthcare associated infections and the next step of reducing those, well, this is forcing us to look at that. And for me, you know, we do have to apply a little bit of common sense to this because this is the way diseases are transmitted. So we can't then just chop half of them off and say, we're not going to worry about that until we really have to. We have to bring that into the mix right now and look at the air as a real serious contender for all types of pathogens, not just COVID-19.
Great, thank you, Richard. Another question for Nathan. Can you discuss the process involved in installation of the units?
Yeah, sure. It's one of the beauties of the systems is how easy they are to install. So there's floor standing units, wall mounted units, and there's more of a personal portable unit as well. So the wall mounted units just require 2 screws fitting onto the wall and a simple hang, almost like a picture frame sort of system that hangs on. They come with a flexible lead and a standard UK 3-pin plug. As long as you've got a socket nearby, you can plug it in or indeed run an extension lead through to it. They're all fused rated, CE marked and everything, so that's not a problem. So they're very easy to install. Actually, the wall units can also stand on they've got a flat bottom to them as well, so they can be freestanding. The floor mounted units, they're more like a tower unit shape. Again, 3-pin molded plug and flexible lead. They have wheels on one side so you can move them around, but once they're up in the upright position, they're very, very sturdy. So it's very simple. It doesn't require any expertise to a certain sense. The only main point that you need to take on board is the position within the environment that you're putting them in needs to be paramount. So if you're looking at the wall mounted units, the airflow goes in through the front and out the side. And on the floor mounted units, the air comes in the bottom and out the top. But there's some great videos on the Radicate website that explain that.
Thank you, Nathan. Someone has asked, has written in to say that the general manager of a restaurant, can Radicate be used for hospitality environments? I think that might be one for Richard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's actually really important for hospitality environments because, as I said earlier, when we're talking and when we're eating, it's a point in time where we're shedding a lot of pathogens or sharing a lot of pathogens. So controlling the flow of air within that space is really important. And also, you know, if we go back pre-COVID, when we had VIRUSKILLER on our Radicate technology, I would say that 50% of people said, I'm not sure I want that label on this technology because we're telling people that there's potentially a problem. You know, why do you need a VIRUSKILLER? Whereas right now, for anywhere to advertise that they have the VIRUSKILLER technology installed, well, it really makes people feel at ease. And let's face facts, within every sector, we've got a problem of people really feeling that they can send their children back to school. We can go and visit that restaurant. We can. We're not saying this is an absolute 100% technology that's going to stop somebody from contracting COVID-19 or any other pathogen, but this is the next step to what we can do other than the steps we're already undertaking to really prevent cross-contamination. And now with that VIRUSKILLER logo on there, to give people the peace of mind that whoever it is, a school, a restaurant, wherever it is going above and beyond to try and help their patrons.
I think we might have another question for you, Richard, here. If you installed these units, do you still need to wear masks?
Yes, the simple answer. The unit is not a be all and end all. It's a complementary part to good infection prevention and control. We wouldn't like to say stop any government guidance or change any government guidance. What we're saying is this is extra. So as I said earlier as well, masks do a great job at stopping people from spreading the virus in the first place. And that's what ultimately is their main job. I mean, your eyes are exposed. Masks probably have a 55% benefit to you not getting a virus, but they have a very high benefit, their ratio of you stopping spreading that virus if you're a carrier. So yeah, wear masks, do the usual things, and if you have the Radicate virus killer technology, then you've got a better chance of reducing that cross-contamination.
If I can jump in on that as well, just to say that it's important that you wear personal protective equipment when servicing the units as well. The wearing of a mask is important then as well. With any maintenance that people do with any type of unit, you should always take on board precautions for your own health, and it's no different with these systems as well.
Great. On the topic of sport in schools, more specifically indoor sports, would the virus killer be used in sports halls as well?
So you can use the virus killer technology anywhere, and we have different size units for different sized environments. We also control the flow of air from our units. So we try and limit the fact that if you've got a really high ceiling, like in a sports hall, take our largest unit of VK Medi, we get this airflow that discounts all of that ceiling height. So within the space, we want to control the airflow and we want to give clean air. We can control it. So the virus killer distributors, or the Radicate distributors and representatives, have undergone quite substantial training in order to be able to go into any environment, including sports halls, and say, this is the type of technology we need to install here, and then this is why. And following on from that, this is where you put it, this is how many you need. So it's not a case of just ordering and you get your unit delivered in the post. It's a case of speaking to one of the professionals who can come and give you a consultation to say, this is how you best utilize this technology, and this is where you place it, and this is how many you need.
Thank you. We've had a couple of questions on this one. Have you tested the devices for any harmful byproducts?
We have, absolutely. So there is nothing that comes out of our unit. People talk about free radicals, and in particular hydroxyl radicals. There are a couple of technologies on the market at the moment that are saying we fill the space with hydroxyl radicals. It's impossible. So hydroxyl radicals they last a split second. So all the reaction happens within that chamber. The only danger with some photocatalytic oxidation technology on the market, when it's done very cheaply, and it's generally part of a green speak process, you know, where they say we have ions, we have this, we have that, we have UV light, we have PCO, is if you don't coat the titanium dioxide filters properly, when they're under pressure, they can release nanoparticles. So very important that we've tested our filters under pressure. We have a pre-process of getting the surface energy before we coat it with titanium dioxide down to basically zero, so that when it's under pressure or stress from the UV light and that photocatalytic oxidation process is happening, we are creating hydroxyl radicals on the surface of those filters, but we're not releasing any nanoparticles. So there is nothing coming out of our technology. All of our units are also certified as ozone free, which can be an issue with anything that's using ultraviolet radiation, and yeah, certified as ozone free, and nothing comes out of that technology. Everything happens within that reactor chamber.
Can I add to that, please, Abby?
Yeah, sure.
Just to say as well, I've been studying and using these systems for about 5 years, and I have an array of air quality monitors that we've used in conjunction with the system, with the Radicate systems. We've got more base level, readily affordable monitors up to some very, very high end ones. And when I was started to look at different technologies, I wanted to test them out myself. So we have done a lot of tests. I certainly can't test for radicals and everything else, but with ozone and having a specific monitor with a dedicated ozone sensor in it, I can confirm with the tests that I've done in a real life environment in my office that there was 0 ozone created when we started to use the products. So again, for peace of mind for myself, I have been doing lots of tests. And again, I think it's important to highlight, if you do look into Radicate a bit more and do some due diligence, compare their test results and the free access to data to other manufacturers, and it should be made clear.
Thank you. It's probably the last question. Are schools not receiving any funding towards this from councils and the government? Is there anything in the pipeline, if maybe Sebastian and Magoo may know?
So I didn't quite catch the question, the part on the funding. Can you repeat?
Yes, sure. So are schools not receiving any funding towards this from the councils and the government? Is there anything in the pipeline?
Well, both Knightbridge and Eaton Square are independent schools, and so we are certainly not expecting any funding from the government in relation to this. I can't really speak on behalf of the government, obviously, but I suspect as and when this product situation develops, they may well look into it and see. But currently, I can't comment. I don't have the knowledge as to whether government will fund this or not.
If I may, Abby, I've been dealing with some other schools in relation. 3 in particular in Dartford. There is some funding for the schools to apply for. However, it is normally taken up by the mere cost of employing additional cleaners to deal with the hygiene and looking after the bubbles and the transport throughout the buildings. I know that firsthand from the head teacher of the 3 schools.
Great, thank you, Nathan. I think that's all we've got time for today. So thank you to everyone who's attended. Thank you to all of our panelists. We will be sending a follow-up email tomorrow. So if your question hasn't been answered, there'll be an email address for you to send those questions to if we haven't managed to answer your questions. But thank you for attending, and thank you to all our panelists.